In this video, I'm going to break down the hidden costs of hiring so you know exactly what goes in to bring on that next new team member and if it's worth it at this point for your business. So what we're going to cover is the true cost of hiring, how to calculate to determine if you can actually afford to hire someone right now, and ways that you can unlock even more efficiency in your team. So if you're ready, let's get started. So most business owners, when they first start hiring employees, they start thinking about how much it's going to cost based off the salary of the employee. So let's say you're trying to hire someone full-time and for this job, you're offering a $50,000 salary. So $50,000 is actually only part of the cost of hiring an employee. So let's break down what else there is. Well, when you hire someone, there's this thing called payroll tax. As an employer, you're going to have to pay part of the Social Security, Medicare, unemployment tax, and it just keeps on going on and on. This right here is already adding on to how much you'll pay on the $50,000. So between your Social Security and Medicare, you're looking at an extra 7.65% on top of the $50,000 salary, because that's what the owner has to pay, or the business has to pay to the government. And so, yeah, you have unemployment tax. You can also have workers' comp, right? There's all these extra things a part of hiring team members. Depending on what you offer, there could be more to it than just this, right? You could also have health insurance and other benefits like 401k, dental, vision. So all these things add up. They're not free. Someone has to pay for them, and that's the business, right? Health insurance alone is usually over $5,000 a year. And obviously it depends by state and what plan you pick, how many people are on the plan. But in general, $5,000 more a year for that employee. Guess what? That's not all. You also have to train them. So there could be things like certifications. If you're hiring for a role where someone just left it, out of the blue, then you have to pay someone else to cover that time and those duties and those tasks that aren't being done. So you might be paying time and a half to someone else, training this person. They're not doing anything yet because they haven't learned the job or the skills yet. And so you can see how all these things add up to more costs. So the actual number varies based off how much in benefits that you're going to give. Let's just say you're just starting out and you're not going to have any benefits. Well, then a safe estimate is around 10%. So if you offer a $50,000 salary, expect about $5,000 in extra costs. Now, if you go up from there and you start adding in benefits, then it gets up into anywhere between 25 to 50% extra. So if you offer them a $100,000 salary, and you're giving them the full benefits package, it could be close to $150,000 that you're actually paying to hire that employee, that team member. So then that's when people usually ask me, okay, well, why don't I just go with the independent contractors? So you have ICs over here and you have W-2s over here. Okay. So an independent contractor or a business typically is cheaper. Why? Because they pay their own insurance. They pay self-employment tax, which is 15.3%. They have to pay for their own tools, their own equipment, things like that, their own training, right? They have to be trained already. So all that stuff is covered by an independent contractor. But what do? They get to charge more per hour or per project, whatever it is, than you would a W-2 employee would. So all the things that we just covered that you would have to cover for a W-2 full-time employee, you could then pretty much get away with not having to do it for an independent contractor. So when can you actually use an independent contractor? Well, this is for short-term projects or things like where you need a specialized set of skills and it's for a one-off thing. So if you have no one on your team that knows how to do development work and need a little bit done in order to add this cool whiz-bang feature on your website, then you might hire an independent contractor to come in and do that for you, or just short-term projects. So sometimes you may need to cover excess demand in your business for seasonal reasons or for a week or for a month. Let's say, it's holiday season, then you might bring on some independent contractors and say, hey, we just need you for the month. Can you come in to do this job? Okay. So that's where independent contractors are usually suited for. And if you're looking for more tips on finances and business in general, go ahead and sign up for our Financial Focus newsletter, where I personally write each and every week about the things I'm seeing with small business owners on how they can increase revenue, decrease costs, and give examples from our previous businesses that we've worked with on how we were able to help them become more profitable. So if that sounds interesting to you, go ahead and click the link below in the description, sign up for the Financial Focus newsletter. For W-2, this is better used for when you want more control, really, because a W-2, you could set their work hours, you have a better negotiation right over their pay. You're the one who tells them, how many days they have off. There's a lot more control over what they can and can't do. And this, I would say, a lot of times is better for your core business. And I define the core of your business as sales, marketing, and your fulfillment. So W-2 is usually better here because then you control how they're trained, how they do their job, the tools that they get, when they have to show up, when they can go home. Like, there's way more control, so you can keep that consistency in your business of the core functions. Everything else that's not a core function, you may have more flexibility and can find someone who can do it cheaper than you can do it in-house by outsourcing it to an independent contractor or to another company. So those are the things to keep in mind between the two. So then the next question is, when is it the right time? There's a couple different ways you can do this. One is you can do the profit band method, which states that pretty much you have a target profit. Let's say you're a service-based business and you're like, realistically, I can do 20% profit. Okay. So if 20% is the profit that you want to be at, and you're currently at 25%, then what you can do is spin down your profits by 5%, and then you can hire. And in the beginning, again, it's going to be the demand's based off your time. But as you grow your company, the demand's going to be by department. So you'll see things like people aren't able to reply back to leads because they don't have enough time in the day, or they're not able to take the phone calls because they don't have enough time in the day. Fill in the blank for their department. I'm giving the sales example here, but you'll see the demand will come, and so things will start falling through the cracks. And so you got to understand, like, okay, are these small things that I can let fall through the cracks that's not important, or are these things that we need to tighten up and bring in more people? Or are we just not doing our processes right? Are we not being efficient? Can we do some automation to help augment some of these costs here so I don't have to bring on another person? So all things to think about as you're going through this. Another way, if you don't want to do profit band method, is look at it by department. So let's take, for example, your sales team, and you know that as a percent of revenue, it costs you about 15%. So your sales team in total labor cost, benefits and all, is 15% of revenue. So what you want to do is try to stair step this over time and reduce the percent of revenue in that department. So for example, let's say 15 is your floor, right? 15%. And you're doing 100K in revenue, so this is 15,000. So as you continue to grow revenue, you want it to take a less percent each time. So then your floor becomes 13, then your floor becomes 11, and you get it so on and so forth. But over here, your revenue is increasing. So over here, this was at 100,000 in revenue. And let's say when you get to 200,000 in revenue, you want it at 13%. So it's 26,000 instead of 30,000, right? Because we got more efficient. And then we went from 200,000 to say 400,000. And in this one, now it's 11%. So this is 44,000. So you could see as a percent of revenue, it's getting less and less. So you're making more revenue. It's costing you less and less to have your sales team. So this is like your max spend, for example, in your sales team, your max spend in your sales team, right? You don't want to exceed that over time. And at certain points in your businesses that might stay flat, right? That's fine. But you always want to look for ways to try to see how you can make things more efficient in each department. So I'm giving you sales, but it could be in marketing, it could be in your admin team, it could be the fulfillment team or the direct labor team, the people who are actually seeing the clients. So the next question then becomes, okay, how do I know it's the right time to hire? And I have, for example, inconsistent revenue. So if you have revenue that looks like this, then what you need to be doing is looking at the bottom. And so let's say the bottom revenue, your bottom month, it's 10,000 that comes in over, and this is over, let's just say 12 months. And over here, this top end, let's say is 50,000. So 50,000 on the top end, $10,000 on the low months. Then you want to consider how much you can pay or take on from the lower end of the revenue. If I take this on, will I go negative on, months where they're the lowest, which is the 10,000? And if you're going to go negative on those months, then it's probably not a good idea to make that investment yet into that team member, because if you have a few months like that, then all of a sudden it's negative profit, and you're struggling, right? So always, if you're fluctuating and you're not yet to that consistency, where I talked about with the profit band or the department level, base it to the bottom or the lower range of your revenue and use that as a way to determine how much you can bring on as far as your team. When I think about hiring, I always think about that you have to have the demand before you hire. Again, as you grow your business, you're going to get a little bit better at this. So you could say, well, the capacity for my team who's seeing clients is at 80% right now. And so I know that it takes me 1 month to bring someone on, and then that capacity will go back down and it'll be reset down to 60. And then, by the time I hire them in that 1 month, it went up to 90. And then after a month and I hired them on, now we got them down to 60%. That's great. And then it'll slowly start to work its way back up again. So you want to look at things like that too, of like, okay, we definitely don't want to go over 100 and then say turn people away because we can't see them, but we don't want to hire before we actually need it. So that's the sweet spot there of probably around 80% capacity, 85% and growing, demand still growing. That's when you'd want to hire someone from a direct labor side of things. So whether you're considering an independent contractor or W-2 worker, what I would recommend is this. First start typically with an independent contractor. Why? Because there's less strings attached to them if you have to let them go. If they're not a good culture fit or performs the level that you need them to, you can let them go, right? And then if they do perform for 3 months, 6 months, whatever your period of window is, then consider transferring them over to W-2. And that gives them more security, that gives them more peace of mind. And for you, that's going to give you more costs, but you want to secure that talent, secure that person on your team because you want them there for the long term. So if you're thinking about independent contractor W-2, maybe consider first independent contractor, test them out, get a feel for them, and then switch them over to W-2 later on down the line. You want to make sure, again, you can afford this. So always, 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 you want to have profits first before you make the hire. And again, depending on if you have variable revenue or if you have consistent revenue, I broke it down earlier, you want to make sure you have the profits first and you can afford this hire. Do not have near zero profit in thinking about hiring someone because you just have so many inefficiencies in your business that you can't hire someone. And last thing too is if you can't keep them long-term because you're just not there yet to be able to afford it, consider just keeping them part-time or at the independent contractor status. And then hopefully as demand increases, then you can bring them on full-time. So don't feel like you have to force it either. You have to make that hire or that decision. You can wait a little bit. You can allow things to play out a little bit more before you make that decision. And like I said before, always, always, always look to improve the efficiency of the current team rather than trying to bring on more people. So is there a skill that they can acquire that'll make them more efficient or bring in more revenue for the team? Is there a software that I can give them that can reduce the amount of time they're spending on low-level tasks that are just consuming their time? So then they can reinvest that time into higher skilled time or more revenue producing activities. So those are all things I would look at first before making that hire. But if you've exhausted all of your options and you're still looking to hire, make sure you try to follow it maybe first as an independent contractor and then W-2. Hopefully this helps. Let me know what stuck out to you most in the comments down below, and make sure to like and follow for more